All right, if you ever struggle with your cold call openers, dealing with prospects that get immediately defensive and are already pushing you away before you've even had a chance to tell them why you're calling, you're in the right place. Today I'm going to share the big mistake that's causing this and 3 commonly taught cold call opening lines that you might be using that are causing this. And then at the end I'm going to show you how I prefer to open cold calls, which I think is a much stronger way. And it's a lot simpler too, so I think you'll like it. But let's get into it. So the big mistake that's commonly taught out there is using permission-based cold call openers, securing the prospect's permission to continue talking. And they will take you through this psychological gymnastics about how it earns their buy-in and their trust, and it will make them listen more and be more receptive of your message at the end. They sound really smart when they say it, but I'm here to tell you, over my years and my experience coaching sales development representatives, I think it's bogus, and I think it has the opposite effect. It actually is a weak frame, in my opinion, and puts the prospect on a pedestal. So think about it. Who in life gets permission from who? Children get permission from their parents. Students get permission from teachers. Employees get permission from their bosses. Asking for permission puts the prospect on a pedestal and essentially says, hey, I shouldn't be doing this, but you want to give me a chance and then I'll continue talking if you let me. And when you're a cold caller, you're already getting them out of the blue in the middle of the day. You don't want to be putting yourself on a weak lower frame and putting them on a pedestal. It's only going to decrease your results. So what are some common examples of this that I see? The first one, a common line that I see taught is getting fancy, saying something like, hey, you're probably going to hate me, but this is a cold call. Do you want to hang up now, or do you want to give me a chance at telling you why I'm calling? Like something like that. I'm not saying that can't work. If you have years of experience and can say that confidently, it will work. But especially for newer sales development representatives who already naturally struggle with confidence on the phone, just like I did when I was new, because you're new, you don't really know the landscape yet. Using language that's going to put the prospect on a pedestal is not going to serve you well. So that's one common example. Another one is the classic, hey, do you have 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? Or they'll even try and get fancier and say, hey, do you have 27 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? And then you can decide whether you want to continue the conversation, pattern interrupt. But it's essentially saying, do you have a certain amount of time for me to tell you why I'm calling? And then you can decide whether you want to continue the conversation. Why are you asking them if they should decide? What I'm trying to say is if you know why you're reaching out, you know you can potentially help them, they've answered the phone, you don't need their permission to continue talking. You should just go into it. A third one is now a good time, or did I catch you at a bad time? It's a simple one, but again, you're asking for their permission, you're putting them on the pedestal unnecessarily, in my opinion. An analogy I use is if you were a prominent business person, let's call it Jeff Bezos in this scenario. Jeff Bezos has an idea for a business or has a business idea and they're going to call someone on it. Do you think they reach out to that person saying, hey, do you want to give me a chance at telling you why I'm calling here? Do you have 30 seconds for me to tell you why I'm calling? No, Jeff would be like, hey, how you doing? When do you have time to discuss? I got a good idea. Like something like that, something assumptive because he's Jeff Bezos. And yes, we're not billionaires, we're not Jeff Bezos, but that doesn't mean we can't use the same principles. If you've done the work behind the scenes and you know why you're calling, you know your target persona, you know you can potentially help this person, you should speak confidently and assumptively rather than starting the call off with a frame of getting their permission to continue. Because what I've found is over the years, less and less people give you permission. I think these cold call openers formed during a time where maybe that was a unique pattern interrupt opener 10 years ago. So I don't think it came from nowhere, but now everyone is using these permission-based openers. And I think it's a weak frame, and I think people sniff it out a mile away, and they're nowhere near as effective as it used to be. So as promised, I'm going to go into the cold call opener that I use instead. You might laugh at how simple it is, and I've taught this on many other videos, but simple is better, less is more. Usually the people that are the most confident and competent have to do the least because they give off the confidence. So my cold call opener is, how you doing? But it's the way I say it. So I'll go into an example. They answer, I say, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How you doing? Good, I'm just reaching out because, so what I signaled with that first line was, I said how you doing, how are you, either works. A lot of people say that's a bad line, but it's the way I said it with that downward inflection that I'm signaling, hey, just give me a formality here. I'm signaling that I have something to say next. So I said, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How you doing? That's a very different how you doing than if I was to open how other people I see open a lot say, hey Jem, this is Connor Murray calling from X company. How are you today? That's a much different tone. That's signaling like, hey, can you tell me how your day is going? And they're like, who are you? You just called me in the middle of my workday. I'm signaling confidence that I'm expecting them to give me a formality. And then once they give me that formality, I say, good, I'm just reaching out because, and then I go into my value statement where I tell them who I am, why I'm calling, and state that I want to get aligned on this going forward. It's a much easier way to transition into your call. And the thing is, it's repeatable. So now I have totally neutralized the cold call opening, something I never have to think about again. I don't have to wonder how they're doing that day or what line I'm going to use to hook them in this time. I just say, how you doing every single time, and I get really good at it, and it's repeatable. And that's what you want in sales. You want something that's effective and repeatable. It's a system that you can get good at within. So I've used that same cold call opener thousands of times, and I've never tried to get fancy saying, do you have 30 seconds? 27 seconds, did I catch you at a bad time? And when I say I never did, I did when I started out and I got rocked. It didn't work. Once I started saying how you doing and started getting good at confidently saying, that's when my results increased. So if you enjoyed, consider subscribing. I post videos, many videos like this every week to help us build our skill sets over time. And I'll see you on the next one.